Welcome to Friar Territory. I am Marty Caswell. That is Kyle Glaser here on the Foul Territory Network. Kyle, how are you? Before I get into a special edition of our holiday mailbag part two, anything that stood out from you from the Padres introductory press conference for Sung Moon Song?
Yeah, I don't think there was anything super crazy. I thought it was interesting. The Padres have mentioned that they could give him some reps in the outfield. Again, we've
Hmm.
talked about he projects to be a versatile bench piece who can play third, play first, give you a little bit of power and speed off the bench. And look, if he can add the outfield to his toolkit, that makes it even more the valuable for the Padres. Again, you don't want to force it, but give him some reps, and if he's playable out there, there's no reason not to give it a shot.
I know Padres fans are looking for like their next Ha-Sung Kim. I don't know he's going to be quite that player. I mean,
Yeah.
you heard him just talking about he wants to just make the team. Forget the idea of how he's going to fit into
Yeah.
to the major league roster. He wants to go ahead and just fit in. If he does, he is going to spell some time for Manny Machado, maybe at short, at second. The Padres, Craig Stammen, AJ Preller talked about his versatility. So I'm going to go ahead and see this as an upgraded Tyler Wade, if you will, for the Padres bench.
Again, as we've talked about, there's a big jump from the KBO to the major leagues for Korean position players. It's just a whole different level of velocity, a whole different level of breaking stuff. There's
Mm-hmm.
always an extended adjustment period for KBO players when they first come over offensively. So again, expecting him to come in and win his starting spot and contend for Rookie of the Year right away, that's just not fair to him. If it happens, awesome. But I think
Yes.
realistically, you go in just expecting, hey, just come in, win a bench spot, show you can contribute as you go through that adjustment period. And who knows, maybe by the end of the season, he's gotten more acclimated, he's able to contribute more and more. Again, this is going to be a slow burn, a long runway. And again, it's just about him contributing in any way he can until that acclimation period ends. It could be half season. A lot of times it's a full year for KBO players. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I implore everyone, be patient.
I like what you said, a slow burn on a long runway. I'm going to go ahead and put that on a t-shirt. Speaking of t-shirts, I'm still waiting for my Friar Territory gear to arrive. So I would encourage all you Padres fans, you can support the show. You can support the Padres, your favorite Padres show right here by ordering some gear. We'll have the links up for you shortly. All right, I am looking forward to getting to this Padres mailbag. I do want to mention to you guys out there that if you have any questions for me, for Kyle regarding the Padres, regarding prospects, regarding major league trades, you can send them to us on the Twitter at Friar Territory, at Kyle Glaser, and at Marty Caswell. We will answer your questions weekly. Let's jump into it right now, Kyle. I know Padres fans have a lot of questions. What's the first one you want to go ahead and present?
All right, this one is from Gilbert Vargas. We'll start with the big picture question. Who else could the Padres target this offseason in trades or free agency? Marty, there's a few guys that I think would be good fits to the Padres, but starting with you,
Okay.
is there anyone to you right now that jumps out in terms of the available free agents you have to sign?
There is no one name in free agency right now when it comes to I really think the Padres best their biggest acquisitions will come via trade. It's not coming through free agency. I think the biggest name has already signed with the Padres, and that's Michael King. I'm that one still caught me by surprise, but really when you look at it, it's a 1 year deal. So I do think the Padres' biggest moves are coming via trade. It could be the Mets, it could be the Marlins, who have been a popular trade partner because of their young, controllable pitching. What do you have, Kyle?
Yeah, like we've talked about, the Padres payroll, given what it is. Now, if Yu Darvish elects to retire, that could shave some
Mm,
money off the payroll. But for the most part, yes,
mhm.
most of their big additions are going to have to come through trades. That said, there are a few players on the free agent market that I think are interesting potential fits for the Padres. And again, these are all low dollar signings. I talked earlier in the offseason, I thought guys like Adrian Hauser and Zach Eflin would be really good fits for the Padres. They've since signed. But if you look at what the bare minimum the Padres need right now is, it's a back end starter, a number four starter, and a right handed first base complement. That's the bare minimum they need. So, in terms of the guys that are out there that kind of fit in potential Padres payroll band, Tyler Mahle is coming off an injury, but he's an effective starter. He's someone that would slot in nice as a number four. Maybe the Padres take a shot on, a former ace who has struggled in recent years, whether it's a Walker Buehler, whether it's a Herman Marquez. See if they can, get them back to their best selves. But they do need one more starting pitcher at minimum. And the other thing they need in terms of that first base spot, there's not an obvious candidate. Rhys Hoskins is someone that I think could fit. Again, this would be a buy low signing. Hoskins has not been the same. You'll remember he missed all of 2023 after tearing an ACL in spring training. He has not been the same player since. So again, there's a medical risk here. You're not getting Phillies all-star Rhys Hoskins, but
Hmm.
maybe if the medical shows up okay, you take a shot. If Eugenio Suarez would move from third to first, again, that's a possibility. But again, for the most part, the Padres are going to have to clear money regardless, and those would be the two spots where they need to focus what limited resources they have. Another starting pitcher and a right-handed power complement, potentially to Gavin Sheets at first base, or he plays first base every day and Sheets is a DH.
Okay, a couple things right there because you mentioned the idea of some older pitchers, and I wonder if how much the Padres might kick the tires on guys like a Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. Some of the older guys are kind of floating out there. Maybe they can give you a couple of innings, not reliable, but I don't think that's the direction they will go. But could
I
they
would
go that
rather
way?
see them take a shot on a younger pitcher coming off a terrible season that maybe they have
Okay,
some familiarity with, like a Chris Paddock, like a Cal Quantrill, guys who have had success in the past.
Cal
They
Quantrill.
know
Okay.
San Diego.
Hmm.
You bring them in, you see if Ruben Niebla and the pitching infrastructure could fix them playing at Petco Park. I would much rather see them do that. As
Okay.
much as Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer are first ballot Hall of Famers, Max
Yes.
Scherzer had an ERA over 5 last year. He's in his 40s. Justin Verlander's in his 40s. I don't I see that going a little bit like the way the Jared Weaver experiment went with the Padres. Not
Okay.
maybe that terrible, but I don't think it would give any reasonable amount of upside. I'd rather again see a low dollar
Jake
signing.
Arrieta, Vince Velasquez. Those
Oh
those
God.
those were teams that
Oh,
had. I'm
oh
sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to do this
no,
to you
no. I
during the
just
holiday.
we all watched that enough to feel nauseous. That was awful.
That
But
was a different
yes,
era.
yeah, 2021 when they
Yeah.
had prospects to trade for starting pitching and refused to do it and instead got Adam Frazier. It made no sense. Anyway, that's a moot point. Again, I think those I would rather see them do that. So we'll see what they
Okay.
end up doing. All right, Marty, question 2. This is
Yes.
from Travis, a loyal listener. We always appreciate his engagement.
Hmm.
When are we projecting a position change from Manny
Oof.
Machado, move to first base or DH, and or Xander Bogaerts, third base or second base? 2027 seems right to me, but I'm curious what the org and you think. Marty, what you got on this?
This is a fascinating question that came in from Travis a couple weeks ago, and I'm so glad that you brought this one back because I've been thinking about this. I know the idea of a position change came to Xander Bogaerts a couple years ago. He was not happy with that idea. He said he did not want to go to first base. It was too close to the dugout. Now the Padres did have that conversation with him early in spring training. They've bounced him back and forth. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me to see that happen sooner rather than later, perhaps with the Bogarts. The Manny Machado thing is interesting because I know he led baseball in errors at third base last year. He can still make you spectacular plays. I think that one's a
Yep.
little bit later in this process. I'm not sure where Xander Bogaerts fits the Padres in 2 years. The Manny Machado thing, that one, I think his future will be at first base. I don't know 2027, but I think that one's more likely than Bogarts moving to first base. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, like you said, Manny Machado is still capable of making the highlight reel play. He made a lot of really, really nice plays at third last year. And look, he does have to clean up the errors, and
Yes,
we'll see. He needs to put in the work, and he's shown he's willing to over the past 2 years especially. So yes, that needs to be cleaned up. But I don't think moving him to first base is happening this year, next year. The after again, maybe you get to that age 36 season, and maybe you do it then. But I think it's at least 2 years away, and probably
I'd
three
agree.
minimum. Xander Bogaerts, I want to say this. I want to give him some credit. He played a better shortstop last year than I thought he would. And I had very low expectations because he had looked terrible at second base. The lateral range was not there. I was really concerned about it. And to his credit, again, he was not the range of shortstop, but he was fairly reliable. He made the plays he should, made the throws, secured the baseballs he should have. Can you live with him at short for one more year? Yeah. Is it ideal? No. Can you live with it? Yes. After that, again, I still am not thrilled with the lateral range. We saw the arm strength at times start to tick down as well.
Hmm.
I would imagine this is really the last year you can get away with it. Again, we will
Okay.
see. But he did a good job, mitigating some things that happen with age. Right? He positioned himself really well. He was taking efficient routes to the ball. I thought we saw a very veteran defensive shortstop in Xander Bogaerts last year, and also a very veteran base runner. He did a lot of little things that were just very savvy to help himself. So I want to give him credit, and I think you can live with it for one more year as long as he continues to do those little things that help him mitigate some of that loss of range and loss of quickness and loss of arm strength.
So to answer Travis's question, you think that Xander Bogaerts is more likely to move towards first base, get closer towards that dugout in 2027 than he is in 2026, and before Manny Machado, who has shown he is still Manny F. Machado at third base.
No question. Bogarts will be before Machado. Is it possible he comes out this year and he's lost even more range and it isn't
Hmm.
playable and he has to move? Absolutely. I don't want to sit here and say that he's definitively going to be the Padres shortstop for all 162. It's based off what he showed last year. You can get away with it, I think, for one more year. But if he regresses, they're going to have to make a move sooner rather than later. So
Okay.
we'll see what happens here. All right, Marty. This is from B. Why do national writers always try to spin a narrative that the Padres need to shed payroll, but the Padres are always in one of the, it should say, top tax threshold tiers? Is it smokescreens from Preller so news doesn't leak from who they're talking to? I'm actually going to jump in on this one if that's all right.
Okay,
So,
please.
as someone who was a national writer for 8 years, you may remember I pushed back on this narrative a lot that, the Padres, small market team. Where this comes from is people conflating different metrics. The Padres are a small market, the Padres are a small medium market team. They are
Yes.
not a small market team. Medium market size and market size are two different metrics. So San Diego's medium market size is 27th. San Diego and the Padres do play in a small medium market, but it is not a small market. San Diego is the eighth most populous city in the United States, eighth largest by population, is the 18th largest metro area, and some of those metro areas ahead of them don't have professional baseball teams. Among cities with teams, they're 15th. So San Diego is a large to mid-sized market. It is a small medium market, and often we saw a lot of writers, and I would call this out, using medium market as a proxy for market size, which is not
Mhm.
correct. They are two completely different metrics. So a lot of it comes from confusion. It's not about Preller and smoke screens. It's not about source, anything like that. It's people conflating two completely different metrics. So I think it's really important. I want to repeat this again. San Diego
Okay.
is a small medium market. It is not a small market. Objectively, check the census. Like, there's no argument for it.
Okay, but I'm sorry, the not the texter, but the tweeter was asking about the idea of having to shed payroll, and I know that's a
Yeah,
question that Peter Seiler had to answer all the time after these
yeah,
deals of spring training and that word sustainable, which he didn't like. Like, can they
yeah.
keep spending the way they can, especially given the lack of a TV deal? At that
And that's
time, they had a $60 million deal with Bally's or Fox Sports San Diego,
80.
whatever it was called, 80,
Yeah, it
and now
was
there's
80 annually. Yeah.
yeah, and now it's 19.99 a month for Padres.TV.
And this
That's
and
their
this is
that's
the
their TV deal.
and this is the big part. So, was it sustainable for them to maintain a top 3 payroll in baseball? No.
Okay.
Was it sustainable for them to be in that 8 to 15 range? Yes.
Okay.
You have 5 of the wealthiest zip codes in the country within about 30 miles of Petco Park, within a 30-minute drive. Coronado, La Jolla, Rancho Santa Fe. There is tons of money. There
Where's
is a
PB?
massive population. The issue, though, like you said, is the collapse of the RSN model. That is a huge revenue source the Padres
Hmm.
lost, and a lot of other teams have lost, and a lot of other teams will continue to lose. This is a big problem
Hmm.
across all sports. So, when their Fox Sports San Diego deal was in place, yes, it was sustainable for the Padres to maintain a payroll in the, again, call it the 8 to 15 range. The 3 range, probably not. 8 to 15 range it was.
Okay.
Now
Okay.
that deal has, Fox Sports San Diego no longer exists, and like you said, going from guaranteed 80 mil a year to 19.99 a month,
Hmm.
again, and they're not the only team dealing with this. A
Right.
lot of teams are dealing with this revenue loss. So where that means they can stay, again, given some of the factors we talk about with attendance, with merch, with ticket sales, the wealth, the population, the size of the population, they can still be in the top half.
They had the second best attendance on the baseball last year, right? So
Correct.
how much like I guess the best way I can ask you is this: Are they losing money? If they with attend if they have if they're selling out Petco Park
Yeah,
every single night,
yeah.
merchandise is good. Are the Padres losing money given the state of their payroll and the lack of TV deal? Or do we just not know the answer?
Only they know the answer to that.
Okay.
Teams, of course, are very opaque with their books. Most teams claim they're losing money when they're not. Other teams will say, will try and hide how much they are losing. So
Okay.
the third party reports we have seen indicate the Padres are in somewhat significant debt. Now, not the worst debt in baseball, and again, it's not uncommon for major league teams to carry a lot of debt. I think it's important
Okay.
people understand that. But they did have to take out a loan to meet payroll a few years ago.
Yep.
So even with that, it's, again, the media deal is often the largest revenue source for major league teams.
Mm-hmm.
Losing that is huge. So again, like you said, like there are two parts to this, right? Are they a small market? No, they're a small medium market. They're not a small market. So that narrative needs to die, and people need to correct people when they say that. But with the loss of Fox Sports San Diego and the
Yep.
RSN model collapsing, yeah, the Padres being consistently in that $220 million range, that's a lot, and that's where we've seen they said, hey, we were at 211 last year. We want to stay around there, and realistically, exploring a sale, they may need to fall below that. So can they maintain a competitive payroll? Yes. Can they maintain a top payroll without Fox Sports San Diego? That gets real dicey.
Kyle, before we move on to the next question, what is your idea of a competitive payroll?
You have
What's the
so
range?
yeah, I've talked about this. As long as you're in the top half of payroll in the major
Okay.
leagues, you are a World Series contender. Dating back to 1992, every team but one that won a World Series was in the top half of payroll. And you have some teams that were 14th, 15th. If you're in the top half and you spend it wisely, you're spending enough compared to your peers to amass both the stars and depth to win a World Series. So again, whether they're ninth, 12th, or 14th, they're okay. It's if they start dropping into 17th, 18th, 20th,
Mhm.
then they're not really going to be a World Series contender. As long as they stay in the top half and they spend wisely, they'll be okay.
All right, you're listening to and watching Kyle Glaser and Marty Caswell on the Friar Territory, Foul Territory TV network. Kyle, what is the next question? And as a reminder, guys, we will answer your questions at least once every single week. So keep them coming to at Friar Territory on Twitter, at Marty Caswell, at Kyle Glaser. What's next, Kyle?
All right, Marty, here we go. From Friars Unfiltered, with Steven Souza Jr. taking over hitting, are we finally ditching the quote unquote passive approach? Souza was an aggressive player. I want to know if the don't strike out era is officially over. I talked way too much on that last question, Marty, so go ahead and take it away.
Actually, I need to go ahead and defer this to you because I don't know. I mean, I have not had a chance to speak or meet with him. I don't know what his philosophy is going to be. I don't know what the Padres are going to implement come spring training. But I mean, they have to fix something. And to go ahead and just collaborate on that question, what to you was the biggest reason why Victor Rodriguez went from the savior for the Padres offense just from 2 years ago to what they turned into last season with the power of friendship and really playing small ball, which can be effective in certain situations, but I don't know that can be your approach with the type of hitters that you have.
I think a lot of it just had to do with personnel, right? Manny Machado's home run totals have declined each last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Age happens. Fernando Tatis Jr. has been a 21 to 25 home run player 3 years in a row. Jackson Merrill got hurt. Look, we did see Gavin Sheets, beginning to unlock his power.
Yes.
I don't think this was a Victor Rodriguez problem. I think this was a Padres personnel problem. Again, Jake Cronenworth is not a big power hitter. Yes, he went from
Mm-mm.
17 to 11, but
Mm-hmm.
again, he was always going to be closer to probably that 11 range, and a sub 400 slug is what he's been. So again, this was not a Victor Rodriguez problem. This was a personnel and performance problem. In terms of Steven Souza Jr., look, we have to wait and see, right? Everyone always wants
Yep.
answers right now. We have to give him a shot. Let's see what he does. Let's see what he implements. Let's go from there. The one thing I want to push back on a little bit is that the idea that not striking out is somehow counterproductive. I've talked about this on previous shows, and I'm going to repeat it.
Okay.
Championship teams hit for average and power. It's not an either or, it's a both. 7 of the last 9 World Series winners were in the bottom half of the majors in strikeouts. I looked back, I think I want to go back, I need to pull my data, but I believe it was the last 10 years, the median finish in slugging percentage for a World Series champion was fifth. The median finish for batting average was also fifth. You have to do both. So, do you trade some power for some strikeouts? Maybe, but only to a point. So I want to push back on this idea that, oh, strikeouts are okay as long as, they're really not. You don't want to strike out too much. It's about finding the balance. And if you want to argue the Padres were too unbalanced the other way, in terms of not striking out, okay, fine. But saying that they should just abandon that entirely would not be productive for the Padres in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, before we have we have a few minutes for a couple more questions, but just real quick on Tatis, because you brought this up a couple different times, and I don't know that Souza is going to be the one that's going to fix whatever hit or pot that Tatis is. Perhaps it's his dad, but is that who Fernando is now at this point? Do you think just he's your more of a prototype leadoff hitter than he is a slugger?
This is the $1 million question. Yeah, we've talked about it, right? So look, PD
Yep.
suspension, shoulder surgery, 2 wrist surgeries. He was a
Hmm.
290, 40 homer, 950 OPS guy. And yes, you have to, there's some injuries in there, but that's what his 162 games averages were.
He's a guy that we would talk 40-40 with. He was going to be part of
Correct.
the. That's the type of where he was projecting.
Yes. Since missing that entire 2022 season,
Hmm.
he has been a 260, 20 homer, 20 stolen base, 800 OPS guy. So still a good player, but not that elite
Hmm.
offensive talent.
Okay.
I think we have to go into the season expecting that from him just because that's what he has shown the Padres for the last 3 years. I'm not going to sit here and say it's impossible for him to get back to, even have, the midpoint, right? 275, 30 home runs. He's too talented. He's still in his prime. I'm not going to say it's impossible. But I do think the expectation needs to be what he has shown himself to
Okay.
be the last 3 years. And if you get more than that, great. But I don't think you can go into the season expecting 40 homers from him.
Okay,
Hey,
Kyle.
where are
Any
you?
final?
Where are you on that?
I just I don't I can't I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think that you can't argue with what we've seen the past couple of years. Maybe that's just who Fernando is, and maybe the his MVP season was more of an outlier than anything else. But I do think the PD submission is fair, but I also think that the surgeries he's had is has been significant as well,
Yes. And again,
very
I wouldn't so
significant.
much call it an outlier as we have to acknowledge the PD suspension happened. It
Yep.
would be naive to ignore it. But
I mean, he was yes.
I keep going back to the 2 wrist surgeries. I've talked
Yep.
about this, hitters and their wrists, it's so critical. I wrote about this, I talked about it, top, wrist and hand specialist here on the West Coast, what happened. And he called me. He told me after, remember, Tatis had the second wrist surgery to stabilize
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
And he called and told me at that time, Tatis will not be the same. Whenever someone needs that second surgery, the Padres are going to say it's no big deal. It's a huge
Big
deal.
deal.
The second surgery means the strength and stability in the wrist will never be what it was. So
Mm.
I keep going back to that. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say he can't find a way to unlock something more because he's too talented to just dismiss it. But I don't think you can go in with that as the expectation. So,
I think we could spend hours talking
oh yeah, this is
specifically
this is a
just
show on
about
itself.
Tatis and where he's going to go. Okay, what's next, Kyle? Any more?
Yes. All right.
Any more for today?
One final
Okay.
question here, Marty. Here we go.
Okay.
Regarding this is from Travis again. Regarding Mason Miller, do you think the Padres envisioned him becoming a starter at the time of the trade? If not, that package seems like a massive overpay, as nearly everyone agreed at the time. In parentheses, I thought the package was geared more toward a Skeens or at least a Woo level return. Marty, start with you. Where are you at on this?
I'm going to say yes, that they did envision that. But I think they're also, that's tough because Robert Suarez, you knew you were going to let him walk in free agency. But again, Preller has always shown the ability to find closers, to find relief pitching. So I'm going to say yes, they did envision him as a starter, and I'm not slamming the books on that. I think it could still happen, but I think there's a lot to go ahead and clarify given where he projects in the organization, his contract. The Niebla Stammen factor is going to be fascinating, but I think there's a lot to discuss before you think about moving him into a different role,
So
and
I have this.
given especially given his health and given the surgeries he's had. So
Yeah, so I had this conversation with multiple Padres officials at the time of the trade. And so to answer the question, the plan was from the outset, we are going to put him in the bullpen for the rest of this year, and then
mhm.
we will have the conversation with him
Yes.
about potentially starting in the offseason. It was never a, hey, he's definitely going to start. It's, we envision him as a starter. It's, let's have the conversation for the reasons you mentioned. He's had shoulder injuries. He's had elbow injuries. He has never thrown more than 92 and two-thirds innings in a season at any point in his career, and he did
Hmm.
that his senior year of college. He is a monster. Mason Miller is a monster. He has been since he was in Oakland. Like, this isn't just a Padres development. He has always been a monster and an incredible pitch to watch. He just hasn't shown he can stay healthy over a full season in a starter's role. Whether it's college, minors, majors. He came up as a starter. People need to remember that. So
It's
it was
risky.
always it was always going to be, let's have the conversation, but it wasn't a, oh, we envision him as a starter. It's, let's have the
Hmm.
conversation. The second part of this I need to address, and again, this is the classic case of fans overestimating their own prospects. The package for Mason Miller is not within 10,000 miles of what a package for Paul Skeens would be. Paul Skeens is a 23-year-old Cy Young Award winner he's 1985 Roger Clemens. Like, a Padres trade package would be some like Jackson Merrill, Mason Miller, Leo DeVries is the third piece. And the Pirates still say no. I mean, maybe if the Padres pay down every cent of Jackson Merrill's contract, the Pirates don't hang up the phone,
Yes.
and then the Padres have to add three more players. Like, there is nothing more rare or hard to find in baseball than a true number one starter, let alone who's
Elite
making
pitching.
near the league minimum. Like,
Hmm.
so I just want to clarify that, like, the package for Mason Miller, that's not a Skeens level return. That's not even close to a Skeens level return. And it's not even really a Brian Wu level return either. Again, young, controllable, near major league minimum, front of the potential for a playoff team type of starting pitching. Again, there's no prospect package that gets you that. The conversation starts with all-star caliber, controllable, young, everyday position players. So I just want to add that again, whenever you see a marquee name being talked about in a potential trade, the guy that you say, no, we're not trading him for that guy, that's who you have to trade. If your immediate reaction is, no, we would never trade that guy, okay, then you're not getting the superstar. Like, that's kind of how that works. So I think I really wanted to add that, and I really want people to understand, like, what the Padres traded for Mason Miller was an overpay or not. I will say it was risky. Look, I covered DeVries. I liked Leo DeVries. I saw Leo DeVries from the time he was in Elsinore. It's a risky trade, and it could come back to bite the Padres. I don't think it's as much of an overpay as some people say it was, just because of how much a monster Mason Miller is, and understanding
Hmm.
that teenage prospects are way more volatile than I think a lot of the prospect hounds think they are. And I say that as the guy who was at Baseball America for a decade.
Yes. What was your line from a couple of weeks ago from one of our first shows? There's no such thing as an untouchable prospect.
And there is no such thing as a sure thing prospect. There's no such thing as a
Right.
guaranteed prospect. I mean,
Right.
until they are physically in the majors performing year after
Hmm.
year, there is no such thing as a guarantee. And even some of those guys come up and have two really good years and then fall off a cliff for whatever reason. So
I think the Padres and their fans are going to be very, very happy with Mason Miller in the role that he's in. I'm sure there was a temptation to go ahead and move him to the rotation, given the holes they do have. But we'll see. We're going to see. That's a conversation for down the road. I'd be surprised if it happens this year. And if it does happen, it comes whether there's an extension. And I would imagine you need to go ahead and talk with his agent about even the idea of moving Mason Miller right now, given where he's at in his career. All right, Kyle Glaser, this has been fun. A holiday, our second holiday mailbag edition. Don't forget, Padres fans, again, any questions, send them our way. We'll answer them. I guess we're back next week, right? We're back
yeah,
next
we
week.
might have one more show here at the
One
end of
more?
this week. We still got to figure out some
Okay.
scheduling thing with New Year's, holidays. It's
Yeah.
travel schedules, but yes, we
Travel
will be
schedules.
back within the next week. We can say that.
Within the next week. All right. So we'll stay safe, stay warm, and don't forget you can send your Padres questions to at Friar Territory, at Kyle Glaser, at Marty Caswell. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Friar Territory on the Foul Territory TV network. Have a great day.